Let's call the public hearing to order. Um, So this is a public hearing for addressing the Alma Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. That is the subject of our public hearing this evening. Manager Trent, were you going to make a presentation regarding this, please?
I'd like to invite a representative from Fleece and Van den Brink. Chris Hennessy will help facilitate the information that's been passed out to you at your table. And good evening, Chris.
Mr. Trent, thank you. I apologize, my voice. I've lost it this evening, just a little bit. So to me, it's noticeable. It may not be to you, though. So thank you very much for, again, time this evening to go over the project plan and a portion of your public hearing. I've passed out essentially a summary and of the project plan, which has been posted and for the public available here in the city. The first slide I wanted to go through were the 4 alternatives that were analyzed. And of the alternatives, the system improvements were selected, which were based on replacement and looping. They were already identified in your capital improvement plan that the city's adopted. It's roughly 6,400 feet of 8-inch main, which is going to replace existing 4-inch, which is rather dated, and an additional just over 2,000 feet of water main loop where you have dead ends throughout the community. Also, the project plan included replacement of your identified lead service lines throughout the city. The next slide was the project cost, and without reading every single detail which was in the project plan, the total of the project is $3.5 million, and it's broken down into your replacement. Kidder Road, a new 12-inch main, which is just under $700,000 at $698. You have, again, quite a few 4-inch mains that are being replaced with 8-inch mains. Maple Street, Sullivan Street, Centennial, Washington, Branch and Stone Streets, and also Main Street. And then the lead service line replacement we're estimating at roughly $100,000, which brings to the total of 3.5. Financing, unfortunately, the village does not qualify. When I was here under clean water, doesn't qualify as an overburdened community. If you were to do a 30-year loan at roughly 2.75% interest, we're just estimating this in your project plan, it's about $173,000 a year, which comes out to roughly $10 a month for each of your REUs, which are residential units. The monthly REU cost could potentially be reduced further, depending on interest rates at the market, loan terms, any availability of grant funding, and then principal forgiveness, which is also an option through the DW SRF, your drinking water state revolving fund. Next slide is, again, just summarized from the project plan. Assuming all of these dates are met, you receive approval of the project in August, which is typically when we would expect them to come out with SRF. We expect construction done ideally by the following year, assuming everything goes smoothly. So there's an environmental assessment that would occur in the spring. We'd hope to do a bid advertisement around May 2024. And then the rest of the slide includes a Part 3 application due, and then Eagle has to give their order of approval since it is funding through SRF. And then your MFA closing is your bonding for the project. And ideally, construction, it'd be great to go hard through the summer of August. So Finally, one of the requirements in your project plan is any social environmental impacts. We don't anticipate any environmental impacts because it's really a replacement of existing systems that you have. Social impacts, positive, are you have, despite increased cost to users, you have new water mains, which results in system reliability. That was one of the issues that came up last year, which is where we're sitting today with reliability for your system. And then, obviously looping replacement of older mains, it's going to deliver higher quality water for residents. Finally, I'm happy to, answer any questions about it. It's a competitive process. As you know, we won't know exactly, if you're in the fundable range until later this summer, but your project plans are due June 1st. So appreciate the time tonight. Excuse me. Happy to answer any questions or
Council,
Move
any
your meeting.
questions of Mr. Hennessy? Good.
So-
Go ahead.
So one social impact I want to make sure that we're at least aware of. So looking at the list of streets that'll be impacted. So May, June, July, August. So 4 months, over a 4-month period, we may have a third to 2/3 of the major roads under construction in the village, right?
I don't know the exact amount of feet. I'm going to, based on your assumption that it's 2/3, it wouldn't be all at one time. They'd be moving through
Yeah.
the summer. So you'd have a rolling schedule. You'd have the same people working on the projects, but they wouldn't tear it all up at one time. They would move through it.
Yeah, I guess just one of the things to put in our, I don't know if it goes to the state, but I guess awareness for the village is that people, although we like improvement, everybody hates road construction. Especially if it's in front of their house in the middle of the summer and they can't get in and out. Right? They're going to complain the entire time. They know they're going to get better water pressure, but at the same time, they're going to wish that you could remove a pipe and put a new one in without digging up any dirt.
We need to work on that.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. Mhm.
Hope be noted and submitted with the plan.
See, in looking at it, I thought that 4 months of construction was moving with some speed. A lot of
Oh,
a lot of
it will
construction
be.
too.
That is fast.
Yeah, I was impressed with that. When a builder tells you, well, I'll have it done in 3-4 months, expect 8, 9, 10 months. That's typical. Whether it's residential or commercial. So
Which I could predict
looks
what
good.
that that is based on what's previously an experience, but
sure. That's all you can go off of.
noted,
course.
yes.
But the goal's good, so it looks good, and obviously those are the plans you're laying out to complete it within that 4 months.
That's
time
like
period.
nothing is ever encountered. Sometimes things happen underground that you're not visually looking at it daily. So
We had the Almont Road project done by an engineer from we were testing the waters with a new engineering firm. They use subcontractors, and there was just mass miscommunication between all three parties. Especially almost it seemed like that the engineering firm was working more for the subcontractors than for us at some points. So if any of this goes through and we hired you to actually do the engineering work, how do you guys communicate between village subcontractors to make sure the job's insured done correctly? Because part of it was on our end. There's no doubt about that. But there was just there was a kind of a crap show. The overall performance of getting that project done. It wasn't smooth at all. It wasn't a very good experience.
It's unfortunate that it didn't go exactly as you.
You guys are new.
Sure, sure.
And I've only heard good things, but I just want to hear what you watched.
Without having any of the background, we work for the village. So, we have inspectors on site. This will be a larger project for the village, so you'll have inspectors on site. We're in constant communication with Mr. Trent. He's not afraid of that, to ask questions throughout the day, sometimes a couple times. So that is, I'm sure if you were to ever share any of those concerns, our goal would be to address them. I can't say that, make up a hypothetical, but again, hopefully this does not happen. I know we've worked on a couple other projects so far and some design for the village, but
So far your presentations and the plan I read is excellent work.
noted. I mean, that's noted to make sure that I will, be on top of that and communicate that throughout the rest of the team too. So.
At least we discussed it this evening, so you know that that's a concern of ours, and sure you do your best to make sure that doesn't happen. So that's good.
Mr. President, if I could just interject one comment
Please,
as well,
sure.
that just as a friendly reminder to council that depending on what feedback we receive from the state regarding funding, is that we have the flexibility to reduce the amount of work that we want to raise our hands and take, depending on funding and cost, et cetera. One of the brainstorms that our friends at F&V came up with, that I just want to make sure that you're clear on, that we included in this request the Kidder Road project that goes up to the school district, because we're not looped there. And so part of the strategy there, thinking down the road 2 to 3 years, is that we wanted to provide the option to the school district that, hey, we have been approved for this funding, but you are the major beneficiary of said project. And so let's work together on what the financial breakdown would be, and maybe have the school district take a more lion's share of that project, and they get the benefit of 30-year financing because we took the initiative to ask for it, and see if they can build that into their budget or a future millage to accommodate a major water project like that would ensure that they have the redundancy for water quality at their school system. So I just wanted to clarify why that project got included, because initially it wasn't. And then after we brainstormed a little bit, we said, let's do that. It's almost $1 million project. Let's throw our hat in the ring and see what happens, and then talk to the school district afterward. But it's something that we can pull off the table at any time if we so desire.
Strategic thinking like that, that's good. Anybody else? Council.
I just have a question about where this fits into our capital improvement program. I don't know, Kim or David, do you have insight into that?
Yes, these projects are identified in our CIP, and to a certain extent, we are trying to be nimble, if you will, based on the funding opportunity, and looking at where can we get the best bang for our buck to make the biggest impact if we do get the funding from the state for the SRF. And so some of these projects were actually identified further out. And so we're kind of shifting things around a little bit depending on whether we get the funding. Again, the school project is an example of that. Request the funding, see if we get it, work with the school system to see if they can partner with us in that regard. I actually have a meeting, and this was going to be part of my village manager report later, but I have a phone conference with the representative from Senator Peters' office Thursday morning to review the funding that they've identified for our congressional directed spending efforts, to see if we can shift some of that around, because we'd like to have the Hamilton Courier Washington project identified as funding for that, so that we can move that up and have that funded by federal dollars in the very near future, instead of initially we were looking at, we may not be able to touch this until 28 or 29. And so again, trying to move something like that up, that's a major impact, high dollar amount.
So carrying quite a bit of weight in the Senate. He just rising up. So if we get him supporting that, there's a good likelihood he'll get it through. That's the plus.
Sure hope so.
Yeah.
So we're going to ask for some flexibility in the projects that they initially said the money can be used for this, but we'd like to have the dialogue to say, we asked for twice as much as what you've approved. Can we adjust the projects that you will move through the appropriation process?
Mention what the politics are in this county. So we won't bring that up. Okay.
Follow-up question on the funding. Obviously, we talked about this also with the wastewater treatment upgrade project that we talked about in the last public hearing last meeting. So these are for low interest loans. So if we are approved, is there a designated amount we have to spend, or is it be flexible to take out the loan for whatever we decide what projects we want to tackle within this approved, if we do get approved?
You have the flexibility to adjust the amount that we are willing to borrow and make sure that it fits within our budget parameters.
Anybody else? Thank you very much.
Nice presentation.
Good presentation. Good, good job. And that looks like that concludes our public hearing. So let me just move this. Yeah, is there any public comment this evening before we conclude the public hearing? Anybody here wish to make a public comment? Looks like we have to protect a number of mammals, snakes, various insects. But it appears there is no public comment this evening. So that we therefore can close the public hearing. Okay. All right, let's call the regular meeting of the Village Council to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Additions, deletions, changes to the proposed agenda for this evening.
Oh, thank you. Use a number 2 pencil.
Kim, can you indicate exactly what the addition was?
There was no addition. This is just, council had requested a paper copy of the agenda.
Oh, gotcha.
So
Okay,
I
thank
just
you.
forgot to hand them out.
Yeah,
so
okay, great.
I
Thank you.
apologize for that.
In addition of the 206 or 230 updates in the agenda packet, we got application again.
Well, we did update the budget for the equipment fund, yes.
Roll call.
Schneider,
Present.
President Pro Tem Dyke, Councilmember Kolka,
Present.
Councilmember Feldman,
Present.
Councilmember Glasser, Councilmember Kuligowski, Councilmember Steffler.
Present.
Point of presidential privilege for communications. And hopefully I won't get too much of a backlash from Kim or David. I know that you're usually looking at whatever's going on with the economy in particular. So before today, I, in my humble opinion, I was looking at the likelihood of the debt ceiling not being raised. It may be 50-50. It was looking pretty. As of today, with the meeting between Biden and Speaker McCarthy, I would put it more in the 25 to 50% range that it will not. So if the default occurs, have we given any thought to what impact that would have on the village's finances? Other than we all just stay home and, and say, okay, our economy is going right in the tank. So, are we, so do we have any inflowing federal funds that would directly affect our budget, and without looking at all the other consequences of what will happen?
I'll take a stab at it. As far as,
So I-
the
yeah, stab.
funding that's been approved last year, to the best of my knowledge, and I don't profess to be an expert on this as far as what might shake out, but I'm assuming that monies that were approved in last year's budget, i.e. the $4 million through Congresswoman McLean, that we would see those monies. And the fact that the state has a healthy surplus right now and is going to be approving their budget over the next couple months, that any earmarks that we're hoping to receive, we would get as well. So as far as over the next 12 months, I would think that we're in fairly good, stable position. I guess the unknown is what happens the year after that, if the bottom falls out, if you will. But based on our current budget forecasts and what we're proposing to invest, as far as a DPW storage building and so on, we're showing that our goal is to have every fund be in the black year by year over the next 3 years. And so as long as we get our state shared revenue monies, and as long as our constituents are able to pay their local property tax, that's the bulk of our general fund income. So I would trust that we would be in fairly good shape. We might have to be nimble. We might have to evaluate. We might have to adjust some spending that we thought we were going to do. But in the short term, I think we would be okay.
Yeah, good to hear. We do have a lot of older citizens in our community, and it's going to be rough for them because Social Security will stop. And for veterans, same thing. So, one of my paralegal, she has a brother who was a soldier in the military. He won't get paid either. So, well, we'll see. I mean, both sides are dug in and have real issues, whether they can come to an agreement or not. It's possible, slightly better than it was looking. So I was just concerned because, I brought it up and I threw it out there because we're always discussing finances and looking out into the future and what's going to happen. And if that does happen and debt ceiling doesn't get raised, it's not going to just be the United States economy, it'd be the global economy. So Just wanted to try to get a feel for it. Hopefully it won't happen, but thank you for the response. Appreciate it. Okay, no other communications. So the regular meeting minutes. Let's see what I got here. Kim, under approval of consent agenda, that paragraph starting out in the correction items, and the restructuring, whatever I said there. So I think the change should read, President Schneider stated council has come to an agreed upon conclusion. I think it should be as to where council should proceed. So you could just add that word there, please. Bless you. What else? Okay. In addition to that, under regular agenda, excuse me, I'm sorry, open discussion, number 4, that would be law enforcement millage, both in the title and let's see. Yeah, I guess in the title.
First sentence of the first paragraph.
Yes, as well. Mm-hmm. Please. Council manager comment, second paragraph down, beginning with President Pro Tem Dyke. The second sentence, he was complimenting you, Kim, on the laptop project, and I believe that the next sentence should start with the word it as opposed to they, because it's referring to the project. That's all the editing I have. Anybody else with regard to the minutes of the, was it May 2nd meeting? Apparently not. Okay, general fund. Major streets, local streets, Parks and Recreation Fund, Downtown Development Authority, Sewer Fund, Water Fund, Equipment Fund, Payroll Register Report, DPW Monthly Report, Water Treatment Plant Monthly Report, report.
Just one thing I wanted to pass along to Chief Martin that I appreciate is following up on the request for a written report. I think that just really helpful. Just understand a little bit more of what's going on.
Nice to know they're listening. That's good, yeah. And what do we, oh yes. Construction Code Authority report. Yes, our clerk treasurer's report. Director's report. Entertain a motion.
Second.
Motion by President Pro Tem Dyke. I think Pete was first, supported by, no? Yeah.
Indy, I think.
Okay.
had me
Supported
by
by Councilmember
a
Steffler.
syllable.
We
To
won't
approve.
arm wrestle.
I was looking forward to that. Supported by Councilmember Steffler. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Unanimously approved. Now is the time for public comment on our regular agenda item. Our commissioner is here this evening. It's not on a regular agenda, but would you like to make a comment at this point in time, Brian? He's provided us with a flyer and wants us to be aware of.
So
A new
this
service.
is from GLTA. This is not a county program, but I wanted to at least make you guys aware of it. It was something that I was introduced to about a month ago. Stephanie Hamilton actually runs this program for GLTA. And through a grant, they were able to get a car that's dedicated to Emily City to take people throughout the county that live in Emily City and the surrounding area of the county. So, St. Clair, Genesee, Macomb, so forth. And then they also purchased a second car, which is countywide, which is able to come to Almont and take our citizens for doctor's appointments and other such things, grocery shopping, that kind of thing. So, one of the big complaints that you always hear from the seniors is transportation. So when I found out about this, I was excited, and I got Stephanie to go to the Almont Lions Hall with me last week for the senior luncheon, and she presented it to them, so they're aware of it. And just wanted you folks to know that it is available in our area, and there is a charge depending on what the situation is. So the number to be able to book a ride is on this flyer. And if anybody has any further questions about it, I'll try to answer. And if you guys would like to actually have a program done on this, I'm sure I could get Stephanie to come over here and do that. So that's what I have on the GLTA thing. As far as county updates, we're in the process of hiring our county administrator. We're having interviews Thursday. We got it narrowed down to 5 candidates. So hopefully we'll have that out of our hair shortly. The household hazardous waste and clean sweep program we're going to do again October 4th from 10 to 6 at the Eastern Michigan State Fairgrounds. And it's going to be the same as last year. You can go online, register for a time, all that sort of thing. You'll be getting information about that shortly. We have some programs going on. We're trying to get Forest Hall over at General Square Park straightened out. It's in very, very bad shape. We met with architects and engineer and that sort of thing last week over there. So that's kind of in the works, along with the mill, the water park in Dryden is going to be recoated here as soon as the weather permits, and that will be open this summer. The plan is 5 days a week, Wednesday through Sunday. So they'll be closed Monday and Tuesday. So that's one of the things I see on Facebook all the time that people are concerned about. So this is actual factual information. So if anybody else has any questions, be happy to answer them.
So how do you think the Rookie County Commission is doing?
What's that?
How do you think the Rookie County Commission is doing? You being the elder member, or
Yes.
senior member.
The senior member of 2 years.
Yeah, right, exactly.
It's been interesting. They changed a few things. We only meet twice a month now. Conveniently, that was done when I was on vacation, and it wasn't brought up at committee of the whole. It was just brought up at full board, and it was done. And I was gone that week with my family to Florida. The first time I'd been on vacation in a year. So coincidence, I guess. So other than that, I mean, it's going okay. It's
Getting the word out on the GLTA sounds like a good idea. And maybe having Stephanie Hamilton come here and make a presentation, I think is a good idea.
Okay.
Visibility, getting out there. Council think it would be helpful for maybe put us on our website or somehow get the information out there.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I would recommend that she stop by the sheriff's office if she has small cards. Because I know I've been on 3 different accident scenes where the person driving was actually too old to be driving. And the only reason they were driving is that's the only way they could get around. They had no other option for transportation. And they were the cause of the accident.
so you would like some cards dropped off at the sheriff's
Yeah, I
department
would-
for the deputies to
Yeah,
hand
that
out to
way they
people?
could hand out or make recommendations, like instead of putting yourself and everybody else at risk, maybe give these people a call to get you to and from wherever.
Sure.
Recently had a family member of an elder age, horrific accident. And and both ended up in the hospital ICU. It was like, oh my God. And it was the age factor, as you mentioned.
Well,
I'm happy I haven't had anything yet, so my driving judgment appears to still be pretty good. But yeah, Pete's absolutely right.
sure.
That's a
and
concern. So
you know, obviously, I mean, I personally went through this with my father. You know,
Yeah.
they're not giving up their car keys.
No, and the
Um,
comment from most families when they come to pick up their elderly parent or acquaintance is, we don't know what else to do. You know, we work full time. We don't know how to get them around. They can't get to and from doctor's appointments, to and from basic grocery, whatever. So they get in the car and drive. We had one woman drive from west of Lapeer, hit and run. She caused the accident, and we actually stopped her in Imlay City. And luckily, 3 other cars avoided her while she was still driving.
it becomes a major family issue because when you take away the ability of a person to drive, it changes the dynamics of that person's life dramatically. I had a wife that had issues like, should she really be on the road? And it's an extremely difficult decision to make because, you know, she'd be trapped there. And so, but for the safety of the community, you have to do it. So it's a big deal and a difficult one, and you know, eventually probably all have to face it. But
Well,
yeah, yeah.
unfortunately, for where we live, you can't just call an Uber or a taxi.
So this is great.
And this is a pilot program, okay? I'm sure at some point they're going to come knocking. You know, so it's, if this is successful, you know, it might be worth the investment to buy into this and, you know, go further. But, you know, at least for now, it's something is available, and it's way better than we've ever had in the past. So, yeah, if you'd like, Steve, I'll get with her and then I can get with you and we'll
Absolutely.
schedule it.
Yeah, put it on the agenda.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for bringing that. Thank you for the parties who put that together and bringing us up to date with what's going on county-wise. It's helpful. We really like knowing what's going on. Thank you, Brian. Anybody else with public comment this evening relating to regular agenda items? Call Brian a little out of order. Okay. All right, moving on to our regular agenda. Item number 1, Wade Trim. Hello, Jason. Let me just make a quick comment. I provided council with communication that I had with Township just to indicate that attempted to make a village communication to the Township in terms of observations, characterizations of what I saw at our Village Planning Commission meeting, and it's my take on what happened, but then I did invite the Township to view the meeting where the essentially Rose, quote, senior planner presented himself, and it was well, I don't want to make it an ad hominem attack, but not impressive at all. So I certainly stand by our effort to retain other firm to go forward with our planning in this direction. So I just want council to be aware of that. Jason, would you like to proceed?
It's good to see you all again. Thank you for having me.
Sure.
I hope hopefully in your packets you'll see a couple items that were requested of us as a result of our previous meeting. Separately, we've also provided the village with our references that were requested for our engineering side of things. I've provided both an as-needed services proposal, which would be providing planning services to the village, which would be such things as site plan reviews as they come up, attending planning commission meetings as requested, things of that nature. Probably similar to what you experience now with as far as services go with your current arrangement. I've also provided a rate sheet which lays out our hourly rates. In addition, we've provided a master plan proposal, which I know that you're anxious to get started. I think you'll find that the scope of work is comparable to, in the price is competitive to what you've seen previously. We've provided a full menu of items to complete a master plan from start to finish, including public outreach, both in person and through a survey that could be conducted both online and paper copies. Attendance at planning commission meetings and providing updates as the process goes on. The planning commission being the kind of the driving force of the master planning process, we would provide them with updates as chapters are completed. We bring those to them in a presentation, allow them the opportunity to ask questions, comment, and also allow that to be more of a transparent process so that the public could also witness and comment on these items. We've added, I think there's probably a couple additions on this proposal that maybe you've not seen in the past. We've included an economic development strategy, which we would work with the village in assessing whether or not there are any redevelopment sites that you'd be interested in looking at. These would be conceptual in nature. We wouldn't be drilling down too deep and coming up with market analyses and pro formas and that, but certainly identifying what some potential redevelopment sites could be and what would be appropriate uses at those sites. So that I think that would be a unique, I'd say, scope item that would be of interest. And those would be something we'd coordinate with the village and which sites we'd want to take a look at. I think we have 3 plugged in as our redevelopment sites that we would take a look at. In addition to the existing conditions items that are normal and pretty standard in master plans, we'd be ensuring that the plan is up to the RRC expectations for recertification of the RRC, which I know is an important element. In addition to looking at the housing stock here in the village and coming up with any recommendations relative to the housing stock, future potential development of housing within the village, and so on. So I'm feeling confident about our scope of services. I'll answer any questions you have about that. Our price is inclusive of all of the services that we've provided in our proposal. Won't see change orders or add-ons unless there's a request by the village, at which time we'll communicate that with you beforehand. But I'm here today to answer any questions, address any comments you have about moving forward. As far as moving forward goes, we'd be ready to start the master plan process immediately. We could schedule a kickoff meeting as soon as the execution of the contract is completed and get things moving. And I know that May was your target month. And so, yeah.
It's less than Rose. So, as you indicate, certainly competitive. And I talked to village staff also about, in terms of hourly services, aside from the master plan issue, as to general services, looks like there some are lower, some are a little higher, but generally it all seems in the ballpark. I don't know if you want to make any commentary in that, Kim.
The rates are comparable.
So that certainly is good to know. So council have questions?
I have more logistical questions that might not be directed to him. First, the proposal. I like the proposal, so that's not the issue. I have 3 or 4 questions, so real quick. If we accept this plan, has planning commission been notified that we're changing plan, or doesn't that usually go through them first? And how does that work in the scope of things? Should it go through them first before it comes to us?
They don't have the authority. Well, to answer your question in order, no, they have not been notified. I didn't want to add to the complexity of all this,
Okay.
especially considering the issues we have with the township, and I didn't know how that was going to work out. And the planning commission does not have a voice in choosing our engineering firm or planning firm.
Okay.
So I did not inform them out of disrespect, because I do respect everybody, most especially our chairperson of that commission. But I wanted to make the process as smooth as I could. And I, especially considering the potential, if we do proceed with Wade Trim, that the likely planner would be the same party that they were dealing with all these years. That was my thinking. Was it perfect? I'm never perfect. But
No, but
That
the question I had to raise.
sure.
Second question, if the township's staying with Rowe and we're going with Wade Trim, hasn't this traditionally been a master plan between both communities? So how does that fish out?
When I spoke with the supervisor regarding that issue, he had indicated to me that there have been many occasions in the past where it was not joint, but more recently it has been, and it's actually my preference. But he, as you can see, my attempt to communicate with him on this issue, and I never received a response. We have well, a couple of things. One, despite the fact that township is going to remain with Rowe as things presently stand, that does not mean that the potential is there for them staying with Rowe in the future. So that has a potential open door. Secondly, there's been some discussion with village administration that even if Rowe prepares the townships and Wade Trim prepares the villages, that as we go to wrap it all up, we may be able to take some steps where we kind of mesh them together, so that we could at least indicate it was joint. And our manager had some ideas in that regard, and that would probably be a good thing, but we would have to look at it at that point.
My third question is, I think the whole attempt of this is to go forward with them being our overall planner, not just a master plan. With that said, how do the logistics work with ongoing projects now of weaning off Rowe and weaning on Wade Trim? Because there's got to be some logistics there for that to happen. And we do have some ongoing projects right now. Namely the industrial park, the project we've been working on.
At this particular point in time, the projects that Rowe has been assigned to assist us with are pretty much complete. And knowing that we were revving up to have this discussion for tonight, we've strategically avoided embarking on any tasks for Rowe at this juncture, pending the decision of council tonight.
My other question is, we entered into an agreement with a master plan and with Rowe at a previous meeting. The request today is to rescind that. Have we signed anything with them, and are we in any way culpable for making that decision and then rescinding it?
We haven't signed
Spent any money.
we haven't signed a contract. We approved a quote, and there was a motion approving that quote,
Okay.
but we're not bound otherwise.
That's what I wanted to verify that. I knew we had approved it, but I didn't know.
Authorize the
I
amount.
didn't know if we had just read it, we signed anything yet. Okay.
Okay.
Those were my logistical concerns.
Yet no contractual obligation.
Contract's been
Number one.
signed, and part of the reason for that was, as I just mentioned a moment ago, the transition of our former planner to Wade Trim, and us reaching out to that organization to see if there was an opportunity for us to partner together. So.
And I'll say this carefully, just so council has more information. I was at that kind of commission. I asked a simple follow-up question on something that should have been specified in the plan that wasn't in the plan. And it took 10 minutes and 3 times to re-ask the question to get an understanding of what was meant. And I've never had that happen before. But I'm not casting judgment. I'm giving you guys a viable view of what was going on compared to what we were dealing with previously.
That communication. So it wasn't just me.
No,
I mean, Tim and I have all these multi years of experience, and
no, and I don't, when I speak of something like that in a negative sense, I tread lightly in doing that. And in this case, nice gentleman, but it was a very important piece of what needed to be done, and a basic piece that needed to be done that wasn't there. And when it was conveyed, I still don't know if I'm confident they had an understanding of what I was trying to convey.
just to address it, and we're all here to govern. And Tim's, I think, second to last point about what if there's an ongoing project with Rowe, and if there was, I would be very much in favor of continuing, so we didn't take a project and stand it on its head, because
I agree.
yeah. should not create a mess, instability. But fortunately, it's been well handled and the timing is good.
Thanks for bringing the patience with my question.
Oh,
I think all those points needed to be covered.
oh, absolutely.
Well, you covered my questions, Tim, so I appreciate that.
I gave it some deep thought.
Which is needed.
Yeah, I also had a concern about this not coming to planning commission first because it was their recommendation to contract with Rowe to write our master plan. And follow-up question to Tim's is when the next planning commission meeting is.
It's always the first Thursday of the month, so it would be the first Thursday in June.
In talking to individual planning commission members, they were not happy to see that the planner they'd been dealing with for the last 6 years was not going to be there anymore. It was a negative reaction.
And I would agree with, and normally I would think I would fight and have it go back to planning commission, but I would agree with Steve that I think planning commission would be happy retaining what we've been working with, because not only is there a comfort there, but there's a quality of knowledge that it's hard to find.
There's trust.
You guys are smart for finding it and hiring that resource. So I think if I thought there would be a bulk from planning commission, I would be more concerned, but I think at least 90%, there might be one member of planning commission that would say, why didn't it come to us? But I think the bulk of the planning commission would agree with the action we're taking tonight. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, because that's the last thing that I would want to do is, give the impression that, we didn't trust the recommendation or we're going in a different direction without their input. But you two are members on the planning commission that informs us of sort of the pulse of what's going on.
And we'll be the first to come back and report if there were issues about it. So going forward in the future, we would change our direction and how we handle it.
Just with a solid foundation, this whole issue is that when the planning commission did recommend Rowe, this was not on the table.
Right.
They did not know.
Well, I was just going to ask that. So they made a recommendation out of the fact that it's the same company they've used for the last 20 plus years. That there is no other option other than to say, yep,
Using the
that's
same
who we're going to
planner.
use. Yep.
Using the same plan we've used over the last
Yeah.
decade.
Yeah, so
I mean,
I've been here.
was there another option to recommend?
Yeah.
Probably not.
So I've been here 28 years and Rowe was there then. I think they maybe go back 40, 50 years. But there was no knowledge of what was in the works, what was happening. And interestingly enough, I believe that the man standing at our podium may have mentored the planner that may be assisting us in the future.
I did, yeah.
When she was at Eastern in
That's
college.
correct. Yep,
And,
that's right.
And somehow she.
I know her since she was a student. I always had an eye on her. So
Another point, when said planner was off on her maternity leave, we had a fill-in from Rowe, and I felt even at that point the quality had fell down a little bit, not as much as currently, but it wasn't at the same level.
It wasn't, and it was, wouldn't want to do an age or something, but it was an older gentleman that, quite frankly, kind of appeared on the downside. And I think he's retiring, and that's why they're bringing in the gentleman that was at our last planning commission meeting. So, yeah, it's stuff happens.
And my last question is, staff, are you comfortable with us moving in this direction?
If it's the said person that we think that will be assigned to us, yes, very much so.
All right, so what do we want to deal with first? The master plan issue?
Well, I was just going to ask that. So we need to make a clarification of which of one of two There's two proposals. We need to make a motion on one or the other, correct?
No,
Right,
we
we have
make-
to be three
no,
motions.
One
We have to rescind
or the
as
other,
to row.
or
It'd be
both.
one, the other, both, and if we do it for the master plan, we have to rescind the previous
Right.
motion.
I would recommend that we deal with the master plan first. And if any council member wishes to bring a motion to rescind our prior motion of March 21, 2023, we had approved the quote from Rowe at that point, which was at a higher price than is quoted by Wade Trim. So we'd have to start with that motion first, and then we could move on.
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we rescind the motion passed at the March 21st, 2023 council meeting approving the planning commission's recommendation for contracting or professional services to update the master plan.
Support that.
Motion made by President Pro Tem Dykes, supported by Councilmember Kalka, to rescind the March 21, 2023 motion to support the quote by Rowe Professional Services to engage their services at that point in time. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those, any opposed? Unanimously approved by council. And now we would be moving on to the master plan issue.
I'll make the motion that we approve the master plan proposal from Wade Trim dated May 10th, 2023 to provide master plan services to the village as presented.
Motion made by President Pro Tem Dykes, supported by Councilmember Glasser, to entertain the services of Wade Trim with regard to the master plan. Any further discussion?
Want to add the value that's in the proposal?
Sure.
It's $19,500.
Yes. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimously approved. Lastly, we get to the issue of retaining the services of Wade Trim as to our engineering and planning firm that we will be working with in the future. Do we have a motion as to that?
Yeah, I'll make the motion that we enter into professional service agreement with Wade Trim as presented.
Support that.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Motion by President Pro Tem Dyke, I think Councilmember Kalka supported. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously adopted. Well, you had to do a lot of persuading, Jason, this evening, but yeah, requests were made of you since our last meeting, and you complied promptly, thoroughly, and submitted impressive plans to us, and I think demonstrated the services you can render to our village. So I'm glad to see that this happened, and I'm going to thank Wade Trim for the three of you coming to the last meeting and you showing up tonight. And so I guess we'll be seeing you.
Yeah, thank you to you all. Look forward to seeing you all, and we really do appreciate your business. And I hope the resourcefulness and responsiveness that you experienced the last couple of weeks continues for you. If it ever doesn't, you call me.
Final question, this is logistical. What happens at the planning commission meeting in June now?
So we'll say hello.
Have two attendees?
Well, we still have ongoing business with the former firm, and we would probably have new business going on with the new firm, so that could be
Sticky.
quite interesting.
What do we have?
I should ask that before.
We'll do whatever the village would like us to do, but I have been in that type of situation before where where one firm was going out, one was coming in, and there has been dual attendance at meetings. I mean, we're professionals and should handle it accordingly. But, I would defer to the village and how they want to handle that. But certainly we'll do whatever
Probably
needed.
depend what's on the agenda also.
Yeah, I don't know that there's any pressing issues other than approval of minutes. I don't have any site plans to bring to the table for the June meeting. I think everything's getting pushed back to July. Sure.
Yes. Is it possible for you or someone from your firm to appear at our next planning commission meeting? As we introduce you and indicate what council has done, and maybe just make a little presentation to them.
Sure, we'll have
So-
someone available for that.
Yeah, I mean, it would make sense.
Either myself or the,
Yes.
aforementioned planner.
Knows everybody.
Yeah.
Yes, sure. Well, okay. So that's how we can transition into it. As far as we know, there were no intentions to have Roe at the next planning commission meeting in any event, correct? Okay, so that'd be perfect. We can introduce it that way and let them know. And
Sounds good. We'll make sure we have someone in attendance.
super.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you all again.
We appreciate it.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
night.
Yeah, you too. Thank you. Okay. The village continues to move ahead. Okay, item number 2, resolution 23-0501 opposing House Bills 2526, 2527, and 2528. Unless anybody from council knows differently, and I did have a staff member watching the entire State House of Representatives meeting today, we were told that these bills were going to be brought to the floor and voted upon. And in case you're not aware of the issue, this is addressing the issue of the multiple attempts by the Aggregate Association and one particular mining company to remove sand and gravel from the DDA Boy Scout property in Metamora. And they made multiple attempts in the past, and I think thanks to Gary Howell and maybe Kevin Daly, the efforts they made, they were able to prevent that legislation from passing. Well, big money never gives up. And so they have introduced legislation, these particular 3 bills, which are even more damaging to local communities than previous attempts to pass this legislation. And different than in prior years where there just wasn't enough support. And the Democrats have the legislature, Democratic governor. Things changed. So we actually had Democrats pushing for this to go through, which someone was surprised. Really? How come? Well, because number one, and Democrats, their base is unions, and the unions are saying, we want that to go through because this is going to provide us with more jobs. We like it. So got union support, and therefore the Democrats are supporting. In fact, the House, this was in front of the House Appropriations Committee. The chairperson is a Democrat, and she's pushing it, and another Democrat on her committee. So we're all in, and I think one Republican member, and all three of them sponsored this bill. And it sure looked like they were ramming it through. Oh, and better yet, a commentary went out as this was hitting the fan, sawdust hitting the fan. And there was an article in the county press about it. And but at the same time, inquiries made of the governor. Would you do this? Would you sign this? And her spokesperson said, yep, we have to fix the damn roads. Therefore, we want all the sand and gravel that we can get. So yeah, we like it. Fix the damn roads. And basically the hell with your small communities. Because I had heard when they were making previous attempts to push this through that they were anticipating as many as 100 gravel trains a day. And of course, these are probably double trailers. It's like, oh my God. And they would be, and one of the reasons there was so much opposition, it would be coming through Metamora and then through Dryden, which is beside itself with this, having very damaging or destructive effects on those two communities, villages. And then my understanding is they plan on turning south on 53 coming through our village. Great. So, and I did spend time talking with Jamie Green, our state rep, who ran on a platform of, hey, I'm going to support local governments, because usually once they get up in Lansing, what local government? And so her agenda was no, because she had been a member of the Richmond Council for 10 years, and she is still supportive of local government. So she took down my name as president of the village opposing this. It's just a card. And I did ask her, would you recommend that the village council pass a resolution opposing it? And the answer was yes, please. But she did point out that there was a problem because it was her understanding, and everything that I had been told and whatever information I could obtain regarding this, that the vote was going to take place in the state legislature today. And so a resolution would be coming too late in the day. And unless anybody from council has any different information, like I said, I had staff watching that entire legislative proceeding, and it never hit the floor. I don't know why, because they were pushing it through. At the end of last week, there was a bill that was passed dealing with aggregate mining. Apparently, they have been hit in the past with a use tax. And so there was a bill passed by the House and the Senate to remove that use tax off of that. And I believe it's already hit Whitmer's desk. So I was looking at it going, oh boy, they are really pushing this thing. And so I figured, we were dead today because they were going to pass it today. If for some reason, unbeknownst to me, it didn't hit the floor. Therefore, the resolution that's been prepared and presented to us this evening would have viability, and as Jamie Green indicated to us, there are steps that we can take to address this. Here.
So do we know if there's three Senate bills?
It's
What are these?
three bills that would be addressing this issue.
Well, so these are House bills, right? So I'm
Yes.
asking if there's three mirrored Senate bills.
Well, once it passes the House, then it goes to the Senate in its form, but the Senate is also Democrat majority, and it sounds pretty unlikely that if the House passed, especially in a largely Democrat momentum, and that Whitmer wants it, fix the damn roads, it seems unlikely that the Senate would not follow through with it. Union jobs and all that sort of thing. So what Jamie indicated to us, is, and did that go to everybody? Yeah, I presume, did council members receive Jamie's email on Friday, May 12th? Okay, so you see her recommendation and then suggest what we do with it if we in fact pass the resolution. She wants an email to the committee clerk. And you didn't? Oh, okay. Well, I certainly can forward it to everyone. I don't know.
Not to put you on the spot, Mindy, but do you have a feel for I'm trying to think of which one it is. If it's 4527, that
You're going to send it to.
basically-
You're going to send it to Eagle. See, because
yeah, they make Eagle the controller of permitting and regulation.
I-
Can we end up on your desk?
Not specifically mine.
Yeah, right.
I don't have a good answer for that. I don't know the department's official position on the bill. And I don't personally have one.
I mean, as I read the bills,
Mhm.
the debate that I was having is who's better suited to regulate mining, each individual village and township or the state, and better yet, who's better at fining and regulating whether they're following their permits. Because it does say in the one bill that we have the right to put things in place to stop them once they have the permit.
I have a few thoughts. And I think, Steve, maybe you touched on why we think this pertains to the village just in the transportation through. But otherwise, I wouldn't expect that it has any impact on the village, which leads me to wonder, whether or not we should agree to the resolution, pass the resolution. I don't know. I do have to say that this goes against the procedures that we agreed to years ago about things should not be on the regular agenda without becoming before us in open discussion. So in my view, this takes a vote completely off the table for me, that we agreed that new issues should be discussed in, open comment, open discussion, and staff time not spent preparing resolutions that don't have the support of council. So for me, I appreciate that we can talk about it now as if it were an open discussion, but I do not feel like this follows the procedure that we agreed upon previously.
We have talked about that before, that you can't just surprise us.
I don't like.
Well,
I'm not the only one that was
It would-
surprised.
it would be
I
it would be very valuable to put it on the agenda for our next meeting when it's already complete. It's
Steve,
done. It's too late.
I understand, Steve, but we agreed, and we have been burned by being surprised and subject to votes without proper discussion over potential ramifications on things. Like, I'm just not willing to go there.
I don't understand your thinking. Well, I guess we have to agree to dramatically disagree. If you're facing an emergency situation and you don't think all these gravel trains coming through town are going to have an effect on the village and you don't want to address it, just let it happen and we'll address it sometime in the future. Seriously? If
Well,
you're
but-
facing an
but-
emergency
But
situation.
you're not.
What?
The speculation is that gravel trains will come here. The bigger concern
We were
with,
told by that,
that's
by the mining
speculation though.
company.
It's speculation.
by
Because,
the mining company
well, but there,
indicated that.
the biggest concern with D-Bar-A, because I was out there at camp when it first started to happen, was that they're gonna be traveling up Wilder Road to 69. And they're dirt roads. And the mining company did not agree to improve that road from Dryden Road all the way to 69.
What dirt roads are you referring to?
The one that goes just,
Wilder's not dirt road.
no, east. It is for a little ways. So there's already a mine just west of D-Bar-A that already has gravel trains leaving from it every single day. And they go west. What they were talking about is putting in an exit south of D-Bar-A and going to Dryden Road and then back north up past the east side of D-Bar-A to 69. The complaint from all of those residents and why they put up a complaint, and I don't blame them, was that they weren't planning on improving. There's a bridge there that's only 1 lane wide. It's barely big enough to carry a gravel train, and they weren't going to improve that road, and they were going to drive 100 trucks down that thing every day.
So those communities that had massive fights over trying to prevent that from happening, they didn't know what they were talking about. They had no reason to put up those kind of fights to prohibit this from happening, because you're indicating really wasn't going to have any effect on their communities. So
Not saying
all
that.
that was for nothing.
No, I'm saying that what they were complaining about, this could be up to 100 trucks a day.
That's what they were saying. Exactly.
Yeah, but 100 trucks going which way? They don't know. You can't predict which way the trucks are going to go. 100 trucks a day, every direction. They
Anything's possible. As lawyers know, is that possible that moon's going to fall on the Grand Canyon? Yeah, sure.
I mean, a
It's
better fight, honestly, is restrict the load that they're allowed to take.
It's going to restrict it.
That's the state right now. They allow 100,000 pounds across the road. They don't have to allow that. They can say, if you're carrying sand and gravel, you can only carry 60,000 pounds.
If they're saying 100,000 now, what makes you think that they will reduce it? Why?
That's where you go after it, though,
At the state level.
at the state level. Right now, the load enforcement officers, the state police SUVs that you see out there, if you're under 100,000 pounds, there's nothing they can do. If you lower that limit, then they can start giving tickets, which means less trucks.
You ever noticed the kind of effect that local communities have on what happens in Lansing?
Nothing.
Pretty much nothing.
So my concern, though, with this is that, one, it's a surprise. I was surprised. And two, again, why is Elmont, we don't allow mines within the village limits. I don't think we will ever allow a mine within the village limits. They're going to say, well, what do you have to say about it? Because even if we do say we don't agree with it and we pass a resolution, we send it up there and they pass it anyways, we can't stop the trucks from going down 53.
One of the reasons I wanted a discussion on it is that we should be prepared for it. And what, if anything, should we be doing and having gravel trucks? I mean, you get complaints now about the semis coming through. And my response is, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah, I think we already did what we needed to do. We need to enforce an ordinance that we passed now, how many months ago, that is still happening. I mean, I almost got blown off the street the other day with the guy using his Jake brake for no reason to stop at the light. We're not enforcing the ordinance we already have.
So, and MDOT essentially tells us to go to hell because we won't let you put up signs saying you pass an ordinance. So what? We won't let you put up signs indicating that you prohibit Jake braking. So there's the state again showing the kind of respect they give to local communities. Zilch.
But we can
Close
still
to
enforce it.
Andy said it would be hard, but, you know, he would
Still can.
support it.
We have a plan.
Well, I mean, we're having the discussion that we didn't
I offer
have a
my
chance to
opinion.
have.
We need to have more of the discussion. Not necessarily today, but
What's to discuss? There won't be anything to discuss after this happens. And will I concede that us passing a resolution will stop this from passing? Probably not. Probably not. But if you have problems with an issue and you think that the issue should be addressed, it's time to speak up. And I am going to try to determine why it was not voted upon today, because the push was on. It was a hot topic.
But what point, like, none of us got a chance to have, like, I mean, you were having conversations that we were not a part of, and now we're brought something we're expected to vote on. We've been down this road before, and I do not want to set the precedent that we are going to go back down that road. It doesn't matter to me what the issue is. I just don't want this to set a precedent for doing that anymore.
So do we know that the people that represent us right now for our district in the House and Senate are voting against this?
Yes. Mhm. Yeah, and Jamie will be voting against it. Jamie Green will be voting against it. And Daley, the state senate, will be voting against it as well. And I mean, we're here to govern, and you want to set something in place that if an emergency arises, where you have a time limit in terms of being able to do something, you can't do it because you set some kind of policy that something happened in the past where something was pushed upon you and there wasn't a favorable reaction to it, justifiably, that if something like this comes up, that you can't address it. I don't think that that's a way to govern if you have a situation where you have a narrow space of time in which you can act to address this situation, but you want to leave it to some point in time where it's too late to even address it. Okay. We have different views of governing. Totally disagree. Okay. I presume I can't make a motion, so I presume that no council member is going to make a motion with regard to this resolution. Sounds like not. Okay. Very disappointing.
It's a to or fro. I mean, there might be some time where we have something local where it's an emergency. And this is scary because it is taking away local control. But in the long run, we have been burned in the past. I mean, almost tragically burned in the past. Tragically burned in the past. If you want to go back to January 3 or 4 years ago, it was one of the worst council meetings I've ever been in. And that's why we set the precedent.
Sure.
So if the president's going to be broke, it's got to be something major. And I'm not saying trucks coming through Alma is not major, but it's got to be a major impact to this village locally, where we have control over making the decision. Right now, we're just telling Jamie, hey, we oppose it. When we send it up there, none of those Democrat ding-dongs that are not the Democrat, none of the ding-dongs supporting this bill, none of the ding-dongs supporting this
It
bill
will not
are
make
going
any difference.
to care if we pass the resolution or not.
Yeah,
They're not. So for
Probably
us to break our precedent for something that's not going to have an action, I don't think there's a very high standard for us to break that precedent. And I don't think personally this breaks that standard. That's why I would not bring a motion. I agree with the fact that, I wholeheartedly agree with the fact that it could have impact on our village, and it's going to have major impact on local control of local government, which can have serious ramifications. But I don't think us voting on this tonight will have any impact on that in Lansing, and it will have impact on how our council or future councils might take advantage of putting stuff on the agenda that should have gone into open discussion first. That's where I sit.
So,
That's a good argument. I like it. Yeah, that's a good argument.
so can we agree that we probably should have a discussion about what constitutes a big enough emergency and what that procedure is?
I think Tim stated it pretty well.
But I mean, moving forward,
Yeah.
so what is the standard?
Mhm.
And then if we meet the standard, what's the process?
I don't know if we can make the standard. We can't make the standard. I mean, no offense, Steve, but they put on the agenda the first meeting in January about 4 years ago to dissolve the DDA. I think that's a pretty high fucking standard.
Yeah.
Excuse my language. We've all grown and lived from that. I'm not bringing that up. That's one of the reasons we changed the policy.
Okay, so but is it clear then what we have to do to follow up that? If somebody feels that it's a big enough emergency, we come to Kim or Mr. Trent and say, hey, we need to add this to the agenda. I think this is an emergency.
Maybe even a straw poll.
Well, yeah, because we fall under the Open Meetings Act, right? So what do we have to do to make sure that we don't violate other requirements?
Is that something we can look at in setting a policy? Dave?
Other councils
I mean,
have
just-
policies.
Just so that we can, I mean, like this, if it would have even between meetings, hey, let's have a 45-minute open discussion publicly on Zoom or emergency meeting. I mean, what can we do? What is our options?
I would think obviously it would depend on the circumstances and whether it's important enough, has a sufficient impact on the village
Right.
to step outside of that policy. And it's urgent.
And the action we're taking is gonna have a relevant effect.
Mm.
Because,
Mhm.
because,
Yeah.
because in respect to you, Steve, I agree this is important. And I think if me and you grant a lot, but if we grant anything in this world, it's losing local control. It's fighting that.
Mhm.
For 20 plus years, we've fought that together.
Right.
And
Mhm.
this bill shreds that. But
It does.
so there's impacts to the village in these bills. But I think the standard has to be the effectiveness of us taking a vote is how much of an impact is that vote actually going to have? I mean, obviously if the water tower crashed and we had to put on the agenda to make a $300,000 repair, yeah, we're going to make that vote, but that
Yeah.
standard is very high.
I mean, frankly, this is a bigger concern and impact to the township than it is to the village.
Right. I think you're right.
Because there's at least two, if not three, known sand and gravel pits in the township.
From a physical standpoint, yes, but from a governmental standpoint of losing local control.
Completely agree with you. I don't want to give them any more control than they already have. Actually, I'd be preferred that they get control taken from them, but
And sadly, this is not just a village issue or state of Michigan issue. It's happening all over the country where state legislatures are taking control of local communities, even big cities like Atlanta, for example. So yeah, there's a whole political trend that is doing exactly that, and that's kind of lookout time.
So,
It's a problem.
so respect the motive,
Yeah.
I respect the issue, but I also respect Mindy's opinion that this does not meet the standard to change that policy for this vote. So I'll be quiet again.
Yeah, I'm going to be in court tomorrow. Can you come? You make a better argument than I do. Yeah, okay. All right, so I presume we're done with that issue, and we can move on to regular agenda item number 3, Resolution 23-05-02, adopting final project planning document for drinking water, blah, blah, blah.
This isn't
easy
Yeah.
one, yeah.
Okay, so somebody make it, well, this was the topic of our public hearing. Further discussion issues as to opposition or in favor?
Me too.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
I'm scrolling.
115.
What's that?
I think it's page 115.
No, it's 188, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
Or you just go to the bookmarks and click on it. Yeah, me
Also
too.
with the correction, I would change the resolution number to 23-05-01.
Okay. Yeah, because the other one we didn't do, right? And this is just to get Felice Vandenbrink the authority to move forward with meeting that June 1st deadline, correct?
That's correct, yes, to submit the scope of work for Eagles review.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 23-05-01, adopting the final project planning document for drinking water system improvements and designating an authorized project representative as stated in the resolution.
Support that.
Motion by Councilmember Feldman, support by Councilmember Kalka to adopt Resolution 23-05-02. Any further discussion? Roll call. I'm sorry. Yes, 01. 23-05-01.
Steffler?
Aye.
Kolka?
Aye.
Dyke? Feldman?
Aye.
Glasser? Schneider?
Aye. Resolution is unanimously adopted. Okay. So now is the time for public comment for any non-agenda item. We dealt with one tonight. Is there any other public comment for non-agenda? Being none. Open discussion, water fund. Who's making the presentation regarding that?
I am, Mr. President.
Okay, excuse me.
Thank you. Good evening, council. I just want to give a brief recap of the process that we've gone through over the last couple months as we've talked about the different funds. You'll recall a couple months ago, we had in your packet a nice bar graph showing projected revenues and expenditures over the next several years, giving a very favorable forecast of future surpluses that the village would enjoy going forward. And since that time, we've discussed our roads and laid out a 10-year maintenance plan, and then came back to you a couple weeks later with how are we going to fund it. And because of the PACER training that I had to go through in getting ready for reviewing our roads with local officials from the Road Commission, discovered that we had the flexibility to be able to transfer funds from major streets, which has a decent surplus, if you will, going forward, as far as the fund balance, and be able to help fund our local streets, which are 75% of our roadways, which we get less money. And so as a result of a Public Act 338, we've discovered that we have that flexibility, even though local roads would show a negative fund balance year by year, that we could transfer monies from locals, from major streets, and be able to keep local streets in the black. Since then, we've also identified our various federal grants and state earmarks that we're planning on acquiring, and that will help support our sewer fund that we reviewed a couple weeks ago. And we also gave you an update on our general fund with the new information that we had regarding the cost proposal for a DPW storage facility at the current DPW site. And so we've been able to modify the budget numbers for general fund to show that when that project takes place, that we would earmark monies over the course of 2 fiscal years to keep general fund in the black over the next couple of fiscal years. And then in year 3, going forward, we're looking at a healthy surplus of over $400,000 right now. And so we've been able to take the potential financial hit, if you will, through the mediation process that we just learned late this afternoon is going to be rescheduled for late June or early July, so that if there is any financial risk to us through that process, that it would hit our next fiscal year, which we've already accounted for that potential risk. And then also breaking up the $650,000 DPW storage building over the course of 2 fiscal years. So again, part of our strategy, and partly because of a comment that one of the council members shared last month, is that, hey, you know, we recognize that we seem to be in the red in most of our funds this year. Well, to a certain extent, you folks gave us the liberty to do that because we had opportunities to invest in a new truck, which we weren't planning for this past fiscal year, but you know that ended up costing $60,000, and other large expenditures. So you know, our equipment fund was way in the red for this year, and you know, other funds were in the red as well. But going forward, our strategy is with these grant monies that we're obtaining, you know, over $6 million over the next couple of years, that we wanted to focus on how are we going to use those monies and how do we keep our budgets in the black as much as possible. And so we wanted to give you an update on the water fund and and an update on the equipment fund. So in your packet, I just want to highlight a couple of items for you. And I apologize, I've got so many papers here. I thought I had them in the right order, but I see that I've confused myself a little bit here. There we go. So on the first page of the water fund, I just want to point out the miscellaneous revenues, which is about 3/4 of the way down, looking at the 24-25 projection as well as 25-26. That's where we have the monies from the McLean project that are broken out for the water fund. You know, that's a $4 million grant. Half of that's really earmarked for road construction, and a good portion of it is earmarked for the water main replacement on East St. Clair. So that's how that's broken out there. And then the following year, again, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, I'll be discussing with a representative from Senator Peters' office about the $1.4 million that has been earmarked for congressional directed spending and what projects that we'll be able to utilize in that regard. My sheet says 118. Maybe as far as a bookmark. And then jumping over 2 pages at the very bottom shows the capital outlay projects. And in 24-25, again, a little over $1 million in expenditure for the East St. Clair project. And then the far column shows a breakdown where, as I mentioned, that we're looking to reprioritize the Almont, Hamilton, Washington water main project there. And also have money for lead and copper replacement, which there is lead and copper replacement that will take place on East St. Clair as well. That's tied in with that grant project. And when we get to the next page that shows the net of revenues over expenditures, you'll see that for next year that we anticipate that we'll be in the black by just under $50,000. Be in the black the following year by $280,000 and some change. And then the last column does not reflect all of the capital outlay that we anticipate that we'll be making. So it's showing a very healthy surplus, which is probably exaggerated at this point. But until we have that discussion with Senator Peters' office and get some confirmation on what we can utilize those monies for, that would change in time. But again, just wanted to demonstrate to you the planning that's going into utilizing these grant monies and keeping these funds in the black and keeping us stable.
Did we adjust? I know that we talked about the parking lot the last meeting, about half of it being maybe at the townships. Are we just keeping that as cushion in this budget?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I appreciate that friendly reminder that we've got an opportunity for them to share the load. Any questions regarding the water fund before we move on to equipment? And I apologize that you had to get some updates. We realized at the end of last week that with Kim's hard efforts of putting something in an Excel format and then using BS&A to do projected expenditures, that the system was not cooperating and not adding the columns at the end of the last three rows. So that was part of the difficulty we had in finding out, oh, geez, we forgot to put this in and we forgot that, and it wasn't adding up correctly. So that was the part of the reason for the late additions to you that you received today. Under estimated revenues, I just wanted to point out under miscellaneous revenues, we show $47,500. Those are loan monies for police vehicles that we have budgeted over the next 3 years. So at the end of the next 3-year cycle, all of the vehicles that our police department uses are going to be of more recent vintage. We still have one or two that are, have a lot of miles and age on them, but over the course of the next 3 years, we'll be able to basically replace all of them, or they will have been replaced with what we've invested. And that is reflected more so on the next page under capital outlay, where we demonstrate the $45,000 expense. Just to make sure you're aware of it, that we've got the loan monies coming in, that we finance those. One of the suggestions that we were asked to take a look at, and we could make that recommendation year by year, is are we better off paying cash versus a higher interest rate? So we can do that math and help make that give you that information for you folks to make the final decision on whether we pay cash or if the interest rates are good enough where we think it's beneficial to finance for a 3-year period of time. Now, one of the topics that I wanted to broach with you is when we go to the next page, going further down to line item 536970 under capital outlay for year 23-24. We actually obtained a quote for a new tractor. The model is LS. There's a distributor out of Ray Township. And the cost for all the nice bells and whistles that the guys identified would be $36,000, which doesn't seem to be an outrageous price compared to, the original estimate that we were suggesting that we, invest in a used tractor and maybe pay $20,000 to $25,000. And so we obtained the price for a new tractor. And when we look at, what does that do to the bottom line if we were actually to stick our necks out and actually acquire that tractor, we would end up in the red for our equipment fund. And our equipment fund is probably the most, has the least amount of reserves in it. We're right around $100,000 in cash as far as the reserves for the equipment fund. So does it make sense to buy a new tractor for $38,000? After our staff has kicked that around internally, it's like, it would be nice, but it's not a real necessity. It's not an emergency. Yeah, we've got a 40-year-old tractor. It works. It'll get us through the next year or two. So my suggestion for you folks is that with the upcoming state budget, and hopefully Mr. Schneider's fears about the debt limit issue get resolved, where part of Governor Whitmer's suggested budget plan is that state shared revenue be increased 5%, as well as a 5% bump for next year. If that were to happen, we would end up over the course of the state fiscal year, and with our fiscal year, starting earlier, we would end up with an extra $25,000 in our hip pocket with this extra state shared revenue money. So instead of a $40,000 deficit, if we came back to you once the state budget's approved and said, how do you feel about us buying this tractor this fiscal year and only be in the red $15,000? That would be a call that you folks could make. Again, it's not an emergency. It's not a necessity per se, but we, be able to give you that option depending on the revenue flow from the state for the next fiscal year. And again, that's something too that could be pushed off to the following year as well, where we're showing in the following year that we're almost at a break even. We're less than $1,000 in the red for the next year. And that's with, some capital outlays as well. And then the following year, we show that we're going to be in the black by about just under $20,000. So at the end of our 3-year projection, we're showing that the equipment fund would have a fund balance of around $128,000. So it'd still be in the black, a little variation, a little fluctuation, but again, we can hold off on the tractor purchase and help maintain the equipment fund so that it's around 100,000 plus over the next few years. I'm sorry, what are the tractor? It's usually used for brush hogging. The wastewater treatment plant uses it for hauling sludge around as well too. So it gets used maybe once or twice a month during the summertime by the wastewater treatment guys, and then maybe once a month during the summer months by the DPW. And then for special projects if they need it, for helping maintain the park. So again, it's it's nice to have. Again, it works, but it's not the end of the world if we don't have a new one. So, but again, my thought as I thought about future revenues, that if we end up with an extra $25,000 or $30,000 windfall from the state, maybe that gives us the flexibility to pull the trigger later this year and buy one at your discretion, or we put it off for the next fiscal year and reassess what's the bottom line on our equipment fund budget. So with that, based on these numbers that we're showing, especially if we hold off on a tractor purchase, every fund, to the best of my knowledge, when we present the whole package to you for the public hearing at our next meeting would be positive for 23, 24. I think that's a step in the right direction, especially with all the grant monies that we're receiving that will help us with infrastructure projects over the next 2 to 3 years.
We haven't seen the narrative yet, but the updates we've gotten at each meeting, I think, gives us a better picture going into budget season than we've had.
Yeah,
Had a lot of
a
preparation.
lot more discussion than we have in prior years. Yeah,
I think it's vastly better, vastly
specifically
improved.
the long-range planning.
Yes.
Yes, that's been very encouraging. 10 years on the roads.
Water, roads, I mean, we've gotten a lot more information.
Basics. Yeah, this is a much improved process. I'd have to agree with that. So,
Appreciate that inquiry and that feedback from council, because Kim and I were, working in that, vein to, put the narrative together and
Is
the whole
it
package
more
for the
effort
next
on your part?
public hearing.
I know the efforts in the past have been some gray areas, so I hope that's been better this year. I hope, I know from a council perspective, I think having additional month period like we've had, instead of it being kind of all digested in a 45-minute hour of a special meeting, has been, just.
So with that, Mr. President, that concludes my comments regarding the budget. Kim and I will be hard at it over the next couple of weeks to put the final budget together that will just focus on 23, 24 for the public hearing. We wanted to, show you, over the course of the next 3 years, what the forecast looks like. Obviously, with roads, we talked about a 10-year plan and how we can finance that. So appreciate the feedback that you provided tonight on that.
thank you for the thorough presentation as to both of the funds. So that brings our agenda to a close. So it's time for comment time. Anything you wish to bring to council, Manager Trent?
Just a couple of quick updates. The Good Grounds Coffee Shop will be having a grand opening the weekend of June 1. So get ready for a nice cup of coffee from those folks. They're going to be having a soft opening, I think, starting next week. But it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to be not that well publicized, but the grand opening is scheduled for June 1 for them. Thursday afternoon, I have the pleasure of meeting with representatives of the new owner of the movie theater and medical building, Sam Moore from the LDC, Angela Edwards, our DDA director, and myself will be meeting with at least one, if not more, representatives of the new purchaser to just have a friendly discussion on site about their ideas of what they want to try to do with the theater building, and kind of get some feedback from what does the village really want, and what are some of the hurdles or issues that would have to be overcome from a site plan review, et cetera. So there's an opportunity for the purchaser to take advantage of some MEDC money. They would be hard pressed because of the timeline and the deadline that has been advertised. They would have to submit their application by the end of June, and the ball's really in their court. It's an application that they have to submit that shows their pro forma and their investment and what they're planning on doing with the property. So they would have a lot of work to do to accomplish that, but it's something that from a financial incentive would be worth their while if they do submit it and they do get approved for any funding opportunities that would assist them and obviously be of benefit to the village as well. So we'll keep you apprised of those discussions as they take place. And I mentioned during the course of the budget review about mediation will be coming up late June or sometime in July regarding our legal case.
Continued hearing or additional? Because we already had a
Rescheduled date, and the email I received today says there will be a new mediator. So yeah, interesting. Don't know who, but apparently the first individual is not available during the summer.
Take on Attorney Gordon's fangs. Yeah, okay, great.
That's all I have.
Sure.
Just a reminder that we're having a special meeting to set millage rates, doing the public hearing on the water, sewer, and SSO rates, and the budget hearing starting at 7:10 on June 6th. So you gotta come early. And that's it. That's it.
I was asked of a couple of residents too, if we could kind of revisit again, if there's anything we could do with the township on the recycle bins, the dumpsters as they're referred to. Because obviously there are residents trying to use them and there's still the trash and not recycled materials. I wanted to see if there's something maybe we could do to limit the amount of trash going into them, as that was quoted. So I wasn't sure if there's something we can maybe talk to with Paul and see if we can come up with something. And then obviously we're gearing up for the Heritage Festival. We got news today, obviously, that MDOT did approve we could actually use Van Dyke.
Right.
So obviously it probably going to come before us to vote on it. So, which I think would be great for obviously the village. So we had a lot of fans on it. So just want to let you guys know that was kind of coming down the pipe.
See you're involved, Wayne. It's great. You all set? Thank you. Pete?
Yeah, just a couple things. One, the sidewalk improvements along, is that DDA or is that the village along Van Dyke?
That's village.
Nice. Now that we don't have to go around trees that no longer exist there. Have a sidewalk to walk on, not get eaten by the one big bush just down the street from it. But yeah, those look really nice. Second thing, I don't know if you got voicemail or contact from Bushilli's, but I've had a couple of people ask about the last couple of weekends. There's been a food truck, taco truck, I don't know what, parked right in front of them. We noticed it on Sunday, right on Van Dyke. So a couple questions. One, I don't know if we have an ordinance about food vehicles being parked on the side of Van Dyke serving food. And do we require a permit for somebody to just pull up? I mean, they had a orange barrier out, propane tanks right on Van Dyke, generator, put a boot on the vehicle so it couldn't drive away, and they were serving tacos right in front of Bushilli's and Chickies.
Parking spaces, right?
Yeah, just parked in the parking space. Huh? So we've got other people who pay a lot in rent for having a restaurant and multiple restaurants, and one starts, then there'll be two, and the next thing you know, you got food trucks up and down both sides of Van Dyke serving food on the weekends. And then why do you set up a restaurant?
connection to facilities?
No, actually, Basili's was complaining about it.
I don't think we have an ordinance regarding it.
So the question came up, do we, if we're gonna plan on doing it, are we gonna, starting allowing it? Are we gonna permit it? Are we gonna have to have permits? I mean, I'm sure they have to be within state regulations for serving food to the public. Yeah,
I questioned this in the township because we got them parked up on the corner of Ross Road, and I had brought that up, that you have people coming in, serving food, and taking off. What happens if somebody gets sick? What happens, how do we contact these people? And I was told that they were governed by the county.
Yeah, that does make sense.
but so if they are, then, is it on us as the village, if we allow them to park in the village and serve food, to make sure that they do have the permits?
Check with
Right?
them.
Because who's the next group of people that, somebody who gets sick in the village and the truck's gone, who do they come to? Andy gets the first phone call, you get the next phone call.
I did see an email a couple weeks ago that Basili's had raised that question. I had been told by an observer that they were led to believe that those food trucks had maintenance issues and had pulled off on the side of the road to do repair work, and that no food had been served. So this is new.
The same food truck had problems.
Yeah, in the same parking
Same
spot.
place.
So, I'm sure it doesn't positively impact local restaurants. So,
The way you paint the picture, it appear to be in direct contradiction to our local restaurants, and I think that would be something that we should not be favoring. They've
I
tough
just wanted
enough,
to bring it up so that you were aware
tough
of
enough
it,
time.
and that I have gotten a couple of questions from.
would think we wouldn't want to be encouraging it, or question whether we even should be permitting it. There are obvious issues.
I know that during the Heritage Festival stuff, there is even discussion and concern about the negative impact on local restaurants to have food trucks come in. And I know that we've already talked about, we've gone to Roots and Rustic Bluebird and a few others to say, are you okay with this? And their feedback is, we couldn't serve everybody that comes to the Heritage Festival. We have to turn people away. We just don't have enough capacity to do that. So it's not a bad thing.
I appreciate that point because
So it might be helpful to put some controls in during.
other communities that have regular festivals and events, do promote, food trucks either on a weekly or a monthly basis, and as you indicated, the local restaurants benefit because there's so many more people that come into the town, and it's, all boats float, if you will, or all stomachs get filled. But yeah, if we've got a local entity that's promoting it because they don't serve food themselves, and it's hurting the next door neighbor who does provide food, that's a different issue. So yeah, we'll dig into it. Yeah, that's the first I heard that there was a comeback.
Oh, yeah.
I heard about repair number one, if you will. So.
Please kudos to them. I've seen their presence out around the village, especially over the last 3 or 4 weeks, a lot more than in the past. So their visibility is out there. It's good to see. Jim, I appreciate your report. And I can go on, but I really realize how much you do every 2 weeks. So thank you for that. And even with our robust discussion tonight, I just appreciate that we can share ideas as a council and
I wanted to say is that I was able to track down the ordinances from the Village of Holly in regards to basically, I would say interference at schools, on school grounds, related to our discussion about the First Amendment defenders. So I did pass that along, Jackie, since you're interested, and I copied you, Steve.
I didn't get a chance to read it yet.
Yeah, I think if it was something that the schools were interested in, we might discuss it, but I plan to provide that information to the school board president and see if they were even interested in us pursuing something like that. Basically, just provide protection for the schools in case people came around and were harassing, people outside of schools, filming inside of schools, and the sorts of nonsense that occurs. If not, I think I'm perfectly willing to let that drop, but just so that they know that there's a potential option. The downside is would that attract more of it? Maybe, I don't know, but they were successful in that case, so.
Yeah, thank you for tracking that down and take a look at it. Give my 2 cents, but yeah. It's another issue. I mean, just another thing that can create chaos. Yeah.
Particularly for children.
Oh, yeah. You feel bad enough for kids as
Right.
it is.
Exactly. That's all.
Yeah,
Jackie?
thank you for getting that information, because I had emailed the president over in Holly, and I hadn't heard back from him, and then I was like I had followed up and still didn't hear back, and then you sent that, so that's exactly what I was gonna talk about tonight. So I'm all set now.
Okay.
Yeah, so there was a brief discussion this evening from Tim regarding something that happened in January of 2019. Tim said the worst meeting ever, maybe the most exciting meeting ever. And I participated in in promoting an ordinance in somewhat of bombshell fashion, and it's the basis for developing the policy that we not have surprise items on the regular agenda without it having been discussed in open discussion first, which was a wise policy and was meant to prohibit from that kind of thing happening again. And I guess my commentary is live and learn, or maybe better put, I learned my lesson. I would never do that kind of thing again, which created issues and upset people, etc. There were reasons for wanting to do that, but that's why we developed the policy, and I learned my lesson. So we're adjourned.